Queen jumps on. He will jump on. Here he is right now. But Pete Kofod. And so we'll talk about him in a minute. I found out that this is the one thing about the first week of August is there's an awful lot of families that are on vacation. So we're missing a few of our stalwarts, and so we're grateful that all of you have shown up today, and just grateful to be here. You know, I'm just going to put up a quote for you to see, and I think it's appropriate. Can you see that, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. A couple of things. One is, first of all, that quote. You know, I saw a quote. This is so many years ago that says, "Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all." And I thought, isn't that the truth? And I'm going to share some things with you this morning after we kind of go big, but that I believe that, and I think you do too, or you wouldn't be here. We're fast moving towards, in terms of with AI and everything else that's going on. I think we're fast moving into an era where there's a vacuum out there, and there's a vacuum that we as the ThRivers can fill. And I think that's why we're on this call. And, you know, roots, I love this picture, and some of you have seen it before, but it's just really indicative. I want you to think for a second. You know, these are representative of, for these to really be entangled, for these roots to be really entangled, they're representative of the sequoia tree. Because the sequoia tree, as you know, and we've talked about this before, as tall as they are, some of them well in excess of 300 feet tall, have no taproot. And what they have is roots that don't go out for miles under the ground either. They go out to the next tree, and they entangle with that next tree. And and then the next one entangles with the next one, you know, and then the next one entangles with the next one. And to blow one tree over, you're going to have to blow all of them over. And to me, that's representative of a number of different things, but not the least of which is when you think about it, these trees have lived longer than almost any other trees on the earth. They're 2-3 centuries old or older. They withstand storms. They withstand just about everything. And you look at the concept of this just really intrigues me. First of all, ask yourself, what would happen if these trees were intermingled and they were not all redwoods? You know, the fact that first of all, to have this happen, all those trees have to be like-minded and like-hearted. If you just dropped in a bunch of different trees in the midst of them, it would erode the roots themselves and not make them one. So when you're building, as we're building, and as you build communities together in a time when we're living in a VUCA world that's really creating a vacuum for us, a very, very positive vacuum for us, the opportunity to grow, our strength is going to come by not only what's underground, but what's above ground. We emphasize all the time what is below the surface, but it's what's above the surface that counts just as much as what's below the surface. And so with that in mind, I just kind of wanted to just pop that out to you just as a thought as we're moving into this, and kind of in precursor of maybe a unique way to go big. We have, how many people do we have on the call right now? Let's, under participants, it should tell me
27, including all of us.
Okay, that might take a little bit longer than I thought. But anyway, if you would be willing, all right, let's do it this way. First of all, let me share this with you, and then we'll go big, okay? I'm going to share with you some excerpts from a book. And the book is called, I put it up here so that you can see it, because it's just so good. But the book is called Everybody Matters. And this is a book that I think is as impactful as the ones that, you know, where Covey came out. I've been reaching out to Bob Chapman, see if we can't do something with him. He's CEO of a multifamily enterprise, billion-dollar company that has survived multi-generationally. So this is why it's interesting me to kind of read what he's saying. And we will buy this book for you. We'll send it to you, or you just need to let us know if you want it. And we want to have this archive. Some of you have already let us know if you prefer to have it as a Kindle book, or you prefer to have it as a hard copy. And if you just let us know that, you can just send an email to Dave at Empowered Wealth, or Amanda at Empowered Wealth, or Sarah at Empowered Wealth. It'll all get there, or me at Empowered Wealth, it'll get there anyway. Just pick a name and send it to us if you know how you would like to receive the book, if you want to get it as a Kindle or if you want to get it as a hard copy. But when you start to think about, here's a man kind of coming out of what he's been able to see evolve. And so you quick starts have probably already read this page, but let me just go through it. If there's something that catches your eye on it, let's talk about it for a second. So we're starting to evolve toward becoming an organization in which people truly matter more than anything else. And why would we even say that? That we're coming into a time when people would matter more than anything else. I mean, just that statement right now, what does that tell you about where we're at and why? Any comments? If you have a comment, just raise your hand. That's the easiest way that I can see. Everybody knows how to raise your hand, right? Just down at the bottom, raise your hand, or not, or just wave your hand and I can kind of see it. Okay, Anne, you're waving your hand.
I am, because you get so focused on the product, the money, the day-to-day operation. All of a sudden you realize your people, whether they're your client or your workers, are what is important in getting that product, that money, that aspect. And you all of a sudden have to shift your thinking.
Okay, great comment. Others, please.
We can only do so much alone, and with a family of people, you can get an awful lot more done in any way that you look at the world or life itself, Lee.
Okay, good comment. Thank you. And I think that, with everything that's going on for me, when I look at this, that, you look at the industrial society where all of a sudden human labor became something just like machinery. You know what I mean? Everything was very impersonal. Get this done, get this done, get this done. And then we've moved into a stage where we've started, we went from IQ to EQ, and we've got to have more emotion about it. We got to be more, more human about what we're doing. And then all of a sudden AI comes running at us, and AI comes in and a lot of people are running the other direction because they're feeling like it's taking the human out of it. So just keep that in mind and park it, because we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. The human side of our business is beginning to come into focus. And this is interesting. My family life and personal values were beginning to migrate in natural ways into our approach to business. And as I've sat back, I've really been just so you know, I've been in a kind of a situation recently where I've really been thinking about ThRiver and where it's gone and what it's doing and what's the original purposes of it. And we'll get into that in just a little bit, but this is just a precursor to it. The consequences would be profound for me and for the business and all the lives it touched in ways big and small. In the United States, an estimated 88% of the workforce, 130 million people, go home every day feeling that they work for an organization that doesn't listen to or care about them. I don't know what number one is. That is 7 out of 8 people. These are mothers and fathers, our brothers and sisters, our sons and daughters. They all have a high probability of working for an organization that doesn't care for them as individuals, but instead sees them merely as functions or objects, as a means to the success of the organization. We live in a world where the phrase TGIF has become universally accepted. For most people, work is drudgery, a meaningless ordeal to be endured day in, day out. Now, there's a couple more on this that I want to do, but I'm starting to feel an angst because we didn't really go big, and I wanted to make sure everybody was here to get started first. So that angst is starting to work on me. And, I was making a choice of how far to read on this, but anyway, putting this out as a start, that right now, I believe that everybody here, my positive focus really for you, my go big, is be able to see the faces of you as leaders in your business, your families, and your communities. Really in your families, your business, and communities in that order. And so would you be willing to right now, just so that we can all go big? I'd like, if anybody has something that they've been particularly proud of, if they'd be willing to share it. I can share one thing, the book, and by the way, as a sideline to this, I think, just as an announcement, I think we're going to do another navigation call next month prior to the convergence in October. I've got Damon West lined up, and if I can get him locked in on a date, he's the one that wrote the book, The Coffee Bean. And I got copies of The Coffee Bean. I sent them out to each of my kids, my older kids especially. And this is my go big. And I sent one and with a note, and I had he autographed him for me to him, just put a little note to him and sent him to him. And one of my two of my grandchildren that I sent him to have already responded directly to him, thanking him. And one kind of surprised me yesterday, just to know that here's this young man that's in college, he's distracted with all kinds of things, would take the time to write a note of gratitude. That's important. That's important. So that's a little thrill. So that's my go big. And so as we're going, you all know where the chat room is. Wouldn't mind, why don't each one of us take a second and just type in something that we're particularly grateful for right now, something's going on. If it's an experience, that's that much greater. And just type in something that you're grateful for. Or you can raise your hand and share it. Now, I'd recommend everybody open up chat now because it's kind of fun to watch. Let me turn this stop share off. Excuse me.
Oh, happened.
Oh, you can type in right there.
It's too much.
Hear me?
Yes, Jay, so are you the same?
Yeah, so I guess while everyone's typing, I'll share something I'm grateful for. This last weekend, we were scheduled to take my parents to Pismo Beach to spend time with the grandchildren. And right before that, both my sons got ear infections on 2 separate days within the week. So they weren't really feeling like traveling, but everybody was looking forward to spending time as a family. And instead of, finding disappointment around that, everybody got together and figured out a great way to replace Pismo Beach with a staycation. And so my parents came in on Friday, spent the whole weekend with us, and we just pretended like we weren't home, cell phones away, no cooking in the kitchen, just it was a vacation here at home. Nothing thrilling about what we did. It was just the family pulling together to make sure that the experience wasn't lost due to the circumstance. And I just thought that was, I'm just so grateful for that, the whole family thinking about that together.
Jay, I think here's an opportunity that you had so much of your family involved, and then the concept of how you rallied together in that moment, and you even though it looked like this wasn't going to happen, you turned it around and made it something else that happened. Is that worth, naming that experience for future experiences when things just don't go the way that they should go, and you could say, hey, this is a Pismo moment. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that would be great. And I think that I would like for the family to come up with that one together. So being part of the thought process behind what happened and what it meant to one another, for all of us to come together and create a name for it would be part of that experience. And I think that would be a great way to bring it all together.
That would be way cool. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing. Well, Debbie, I see you're going to get an 8th grandchild.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
We find out the baby's sex tonight.
Ah, revealed party tonight, huh?
There he is, yep.
Oh, good. What's the ratio right now of your 7 grandchildren?
We have 4 boys and 3 girls.
So what's the likelihood this is going to be a boy to even it out?
Well, Lauren's husband thinks it's gonna be a boy, so we'll see what happens here. Only God. Oh,
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yep.
You know, it's interesting to me as I'm looking through this, most everybody is really talking about things that have to do with their family. And, you know, I watched, how many of you watched the, what is it called? The British Open, the tennis tournament that's, is it the British Open? Is that what it's called?
Wimbledon.
Wimbledon, yeah, that's what it's called, like Wimbledon. Okay. Whoa, anyhow.
Golf is the open.
That's right. Golf's the Open, but we were watching the Open, and what's the guy's name that won it?
Carlos?
Carlos, yes, the
Carlos.
young
Carlos
32-year-old.
Acevedo or Acevedo, something like that. And who lost?
Alcaraz.
Who lost?
Djokovic.
Djokovic lost, right?
Nick
And
Djokovic.
back, and I don't know if you watched any of it as it ended. You know, when it ended, he was very stoic. I thought Novak was very stoic. He was very polite. You know, he really honored Carlos for what he had done. And but you could tell he was really, really, you know, kind of like, okay, tomorrow I'll be better, kind of walk through that scenario. And he after I was talking, as they were interviewing something like that, they said, well, your family's up there and your son's supporting you. And he turned around and he looked up, and that was the end of, he could not talk after that. He looked up, saw his family, and then that was it. And the emotion hit him. And it's really interesting to me. And I'm more committed than ever, you know, as you kind of look at what we're doing and where we're going and what's happening. And the family like never before. And it's really an opportunity to be able to do the things that we should be doing as leaders, really. And so, you know, I'm looking down at, I hope all of you had a chance to scroll down. Gosh, Kyle, when is already your baby is due already?
Lolita's 38 and a half weeks.
Oh my gosh.
So any day now.
And Lolita, she's all excited. I mean, I guess she's okay, right? Waiting for it to go.
Yeah, it's been 115 degrees out here, so she's definitely ready.
Wow. Oh, bless her heart.
Really.
Well, listen, thank you all for sharing your positive focus. I think it's just really, there's a story behind every one of these, you know, and without even asking. I mean, I look at Patty Ann, yours, Dr. Patty Ann, and I know there's a story behind that. You know, I know there's a story behind a lot of these. I know the stories and the tradition of your cabbage being you know, from one generation to the next. What a special story that is. And it's just really a privilege to be able to kind of look through this list and just see where they're at. So thank you all for sharing. That's a good start. Thank you. And if I had gone any farther, I could tell by the look on Ann's face that she'd have been all over me for not getting to positive focus before we started talking, but
You know how I am. We have to go
I-
back at the
I-
beginning of every discussion. I love it.
That's right. Okay. All right. So I'm going to continue on a little bit about what was said here. I think that, you know, our responsibilities as leaders, be it in business, the military and government, or in education, is to create an environment where people, now, so does this apply to our families as well? Of course it does. Can discover their gifts, develop their gifts, share their gifts, and be recognized and appreciated for doing so, which creates an opportunity for them to have a more meaningful life, a life of purpose in which they feel valued and get a chance to be what they were brought on this earth to be. Leadership is an awesome responsibility for the lives entrusted to you. Those who are entrusted with the opportunity to lead must recognize that leadership is not about the leader's self-interest, but about accountability to something bigger than oneself. People come into this world with gifts and talents, full of possibilities and unrealized potential. Our responsibility as leaders is to help them realize those possibilities by looking for the talents and goodness that exist in them and inspiring them to be what they are meant to be. So,
Put your screen back up.
oh, that would be helpful. Thank you, David.
I didn't want to interrupt.
No, but I'm glad that you did this. Thank you. Probably somebody else was. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, thank you.
All right, and we'll put this into the ThRiver channel so you can, get these particular excerpts, because I think that they're important. So this was the first one. And then our response, this is the one I just read. It's not about the people coming to this world with gifts and talents full of possibilities and realize. Our responsibility as leaders is to help them realize those possibilities by looking for the talents and goodness that exist in them and inspiring them to be what they're meant to be. And then this last one, I believed for a long time that business and parenting were totally separate. But my journey of the 80s and 90s eventually awakened me to the realization that good parenting and good leadership are virtually identical. Parenting skills I learned at home trumped the management skills I was taught in business school and honed early in my career. This led to my realization that traditional management was a root cause of many of the problems in business and thus in families, communities, and society. In other words, it was the wrong route. It was more of a tap root, I guess, instead of an entangled root. Truly human leadership means sending people home safe, healthy, and fulfilled. If you are a parent, what do you want for your children? You want them safe, you want them healthy, you want them fulfilled, and you want them to live lives of meaning and purpose. Good leadership and good parenting are both about taking care of the people entrusted to you. All parents feel a deep sense of responsibility for their children, whether they are natural born, adopted, or come to them through marriage. We should feel the same way about all those we are privileged to lead. What I am describing is not a paternalistic parent-child relationship between a powerless child and a know-it-all. Let me tell you what to do, parent. It's a mutually respectful and nurturing relationship that sees the well-being and development of the person being led as the leader's paramount obligation. Everyone wants to be valued as someone's precious child, and no adult wants to be treated as a child. Business can change the world if it fully embraces the responsibility for the lives entrusted to it. So, your thoughts?
Lee, the first comment that they made, that we are evolving towards being an organization that cares about people, kind of points out that that's not where they were before. And the recognition of exactly what you're talking about now.
Yep, thank you. Thank you. John, you were waving your hand.
Yes, a number of years ago, I want to say 10 or 12, I hired a consultant to come in and teach leadership to a core group of people in our company. And I think it was the first break of the first day that he pulled me aside. And, he's your typical, I shouldn't say typical, but he's a very straightforward talking Irishman. And pulled me aside and said, "John, you're impatient and dismissive. And you have no idea the impact you're having on the people here. They look at you as a father." And it resonated with me. It absolutely resonated with me. Because when you have control over their lives, your team members' lives in some form, you have control over some part of their life, their livelihood for one thing, how they feel, how they go home at night, and whether they kick the dog or pick up a bottle of whiskey. You have control of their lives to an extent, and you need to be aware of that. And that was probably one of the most profound things that have been said to me by somebody else. As far as that had a rippling effect. I wouldn't be that way with my children. Why am I that way with our team members? So.
Thank you. So how can we become even better? In our role is, I look at, for example, one of the things just in working with so many business owners, one of the things that keeps coming up is, I would say the number one, I don't know what to call it, concern, let's call it. The number one concern amongst business leaders is the people that are working with them. They're always looking at, how do I find the right people? How do we improve the people that we're working with? Do you find that's, tell me if that isn't in your circles. You don't hear that all the time. It just seems to be something that's ever present.
Yeah.
Dr. Patty Ann, you get lots of that. So
Hi, Lee. Thank you. So this might be a skewed view, but as someone who works with both corporate and entrepreneurs, my experience has been that entrepreneurial business owners seem to be inordinately more focused on their people than corporate. And I think that's driven by the whole quarterly earnings, which is like just sucks the humanity out of businesses from my perspective. And when I deal with corporate leaders, I will ask them about the people that work with them and for them. And they look at me like with the deer in the headlights, like, what does that have to do with their job and how they're performing? And I'm like, dude, you have such a major impact on their life. If you give somebody $10,000 more in their pocket, you might change their life from the perspective of they might have a special needs child that can now go to a special school, or there's so many, you have such an impact. And to your point, John, lots of times in the corporate world, I think it's who the person is when they come into the corporation, but the corporation doesn't tend to really foster that humanity, even if they say they will. Although I am feeling a little bit of a change, whereas for entrepreneurs, they join groups like this, Lee, and I think again, it's an extreme and there's always exceptions, but I think the entrepreneurial companies are very, very much intentionally focused on their people.
it's a great comment. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your insight. I have a question, Pete. Everybody say hi to Pete.
Hey, Pete. Hi, Pete.
Hey guys.
I might have the time zones mixed up. When did you have to step out for your?
In half an hour.
Okay.
Half an hour, just for 30 minutes, but I'll pop back on after the last 30 minutes.
But would you be willing? I'm going to kind of shift some things around on this. I want to park where we're at right now. We'll come back.
Max has a question and it might pertain to what we were just talking about.
All right, good. Thank you. All right, Max, we'll take your question and then I'm going to introduce Pete. So Max, please.
Hi, good morning. It wasn't a question. I was just gonna say that for me, the solution to start care about people again was stop being so busy. Because, at the time when I got up to like 10 new client meetings a day, I've noticed clients started complaining that I don't care about them anymore. And I realized it was becoming transactional, unintentionally. I didn't mean to do that, but by the meeting number 8, talking about the same thing, which is bookkeeping, I was like, okay, I'm mentally done. So the solution for me was just stop being so busy. So that was just a comment.
No, I think it's a great comment. Thank you. Thank you. I think that, I go back to Deming a lot, and, W. Edwards Deming, he said 94% of all failures are a result of the system. Look at the system. We tend to blame ourselves. Say, I'm just so busy. I'm just so busy. But really when people say they don't have enough time, what are they really saying? Wait a second. We all have the same amount of time. Let's just get that.
Right.
Time has no character. Time has no character. Energy is the only thing that has character. And when we say we don't have enough time, what we're saying is it's not a priority.
Right.
So the next time you go to say, I don't have enough time, what you're really telling that person is, that they're not a priority. Or that this particular task or whatever we're doing is not a priority. We all have the same amount of time. So it's how we prioritize. That's how we prioritize. I'm thrilled that Pete's with it. I'm going to interject this right now because I really, as what's current, one of the things that we want to do in the river is make sure we're staying on top of things that are current. And I think we could all say that right now there's some real current things going on as it relates to AI and to blockchain and these kinds of things. And Pete, you and I have known each other for several years now, and I regard Pete as one of the, probably he's renowned, not just in this country, in other places as well, for a number of different things. And you know, if you see him disappear periodically, that's because he goes on special undercover assignments for the government, and he just disappears and then comes back. And you were very helpful too. You know, you remember John Levy, Pete, where I called you and was trying to get his father-in-law out of there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Mother had to go back in, and Pete happened to be in Georgia, the country of Georgia at the time. And John Levy, somebody I want to talk to you about a little bit later, that's going to be joining us hopefully for Convergence. Anyway, Pete, you and I have had some conversation going back and forth just briefly on what's going on with AI and blockchain, and what's the vacuum that's there. Would you mind just kind of bringing us up to date on what your thinking is on this?
Sure. So I think, you know, I suspect everybody sort of has the broad view of AI, and I think it has really now sort of become part of mainstream awareness in terms of what the risks are. Certainly also what the promises are. There's no doubt about it, right? It's an incredibly powerful capability that has the ability to, you know, both be wielded for good and evil. And in doing so, it's because it's really an amoral technology. It can be obviously trained for truth, but it can also be trained for deception. And so that is, and again, that has become part of the conversation and the debate around AI. Blockchain, on the other hand, I think most of you know, is fundamentally about the ability to attest and establish provenance of whatever sort of the source information is. There's a lot of different ways. There's obviously a lot of ways that it's sort of departed, but I've been involved with it for quite some time. And the fact that it is a mechanism, and I think a very attractive mechanism of establishing provenance and truth, makes it sort of an interesting counterpoint to what could potentially go bad with AI. And I actually was many years ago, in fact, over 20 years ago, was working with now retired General Stan McChrystal on a thing for the organization that he was leading at the time. This was in the late 90s, and he was obviously still in the military. He was a colonel at the time. And he went on to, based on some of the work that this small group of us working with him and for him put together, he coined a term that became used in for a while, and that is that you fight networks with networks. And so the idea being that if you are going up against a system that is highly automated, you need to bring your own automation game to fight it, because you're just not going to be able to get to it, right? So if you take a look at, for example, anti-malware today, is very involved. A lot of the anti-malware mechanisms use essentially an AI engine to detect bad behavior. And now that AI, sort of at a broad level, is also going to likely be used to deceive, either through disinformation or misinformation, and they're not the same thing, and or a variety of other mechanisms. And that is going to be a learning engine for bad. It's going to be important that the same mentality is brought to bear against it. And so the firm that I am working with right now, so I've launched a new project and I'm very excited about it. We are actually embracing those two pieces side by side, right? So we're using AI in a generative way to generate scenarios that are of risk to organizations. So we will take news and we will basically create essentially an augmented reality for scenario development. But if you think about that, if that was to be published as being true, would be highly deceptive. And then what we're going to do is we're going to essentially develop a mechanism, a tagging mechanism, in which we're going to use blockchain that's going to assign truth to certain things, so that makes sure that we either tag it as being true or false, never ever slips out without that tag on it. So this is very early, but it's interesting that the two of the key technologies that we're seeing that are emerging, one is one that can be used for deception, and the other one can be used for verification and for knowing what's true. And while this is obviously, while I've described it in very, very, very technical terms within what probably is a fairly narrow scope, I think everybody on here as leaders within your various industries and companies and what you do can probably see that there's an opportunity in which those technologies riding side by side can really create a lot of value and a lot of good in the world. And that is that if you essentially think of using AI to generate something good, and then using the blockchain in a way to validate the truth and create provenance around what's created, there's a mechanism in which you can sort of keep AI on the guardrails. The details of that, of course, to be determined. We're very, very early, but there are opportunities for reining in certainly, generative AI that may not represent, artificial generalized intelligence. So that's something that we're working very heavily on. I for one, also would like to just share a thing I'm very excited about, and that is that I found my integrator. For those of you who know EOS, that is finding your partner when you're starting something, or even when you're well underway in something is really, it's magical because it frees you up to be who you are. So anyway, I just want to share that. If there's anybody has any questions about where some of these things are going and what they can do to, I'm sure by now most people played with ChatGPT, but there's a lot more to it than just that. So yeah, go ahead. That's the big thing that I wanted to share, Lee.
Yeah, one question I have on that, Pete, and then anybody else, your questions on this, and just to have an understanding, is when you start looking at blockchain, let's say, to verify, could you use deep fake type stuff too? I mean, like
could you do what? You broke up right at the
like the deep fakes, those kinds of things where you have a video that you think is somebody standing up saying this, but it's really not him. Is it something that could be aggressively used, that quick to determine deep fake and things of that nature?
So there's a lot of different ways that people are looking into that, right? So everything from digital tagging, so that there's certain pieces that are immutable about who you are as your identity going onto the blockchain. And then that's going to eventually have to flow into all the applications that actually will automatically be able to, so there will be essentially an element that it's not just a matter of which there's sort of a heuristic detection of the probability of it being a fake, but in which you can essentially sign something, just like today, which is, most people know that you can do in the blockchain, which is this concept of smart contracts, and that you can do NFTs, which, assigned ownership. The mechanism that's going to happen next, that's really going to make the blockchain valuable, is in which we take the physical world and we can link truth in the physical world to the blockchain. And that's where a lot of research is being done right now. And a lot of startups are working on that. Everything from things like, some of the more common examples are, can you prove that this food or this export came from a place that's not under sanctions for a variety of reasons, overfishing, or the infamous blood diamonds and things like that, so that there's a way in which provenance can be proven. That's going to sort of become, that technology that's focusing on big problems is eventually going to become commoditized down to where literally every part of what you want, including your physical identity, can be proven. And then the component's going to be, how do you make that available to platforms so that they can automatically detect that, despite the fact that this looks exactly like Lee Brower, the voice is exactly like Lee Brower's, the background is Lee Brower's, it sounds like Lee Brower, but it's not Lee Brower, right? So those are the things that are being worked on, because those are the things that are going to allow AI to stay within its guardrails to a certain extent, maximize its benefit and minimize its abuse.
Thank you.
So,
any other thoughts, questions? This is your opportunity. Pete's got the answers. So
how about that? But
Hey, Pete, I've got a question, or just maybe a thought, and I've been fooling around with ChatGPT a little bit, but how about some kind of a scanning device whereby when you have somebody that is trying to validate whether it's true or not, that there's some kind of a scan that you could put on that to say, yeah, it's true, or no, it is not true.
Exactly. And so that's what we are going to, so that's, Randy, is exactly what we're going to do with the scenarios that we're developing. Is that, so we're working with this other person, and she's basically a data text. She does data taxonomy. And so we're going to, every single little piece of data that we're going to use to essentially assemble these scenarios, we're going to tag with whether it came from provenance or whether it was generated internally. So we're going to sign that piece, and that now is going to go forward. So what, essentially what is going to happen over time is that you're going to sign the pieces of data, and you're going to say, look, anything that's not signed by this, you know what, go with what you know. And that's then going to become available in the applications that are going to be able to say, this is content that has not been validated by what it says it is.
Right. It's kind of like blocking your phone from somebody you don't want to talk to. You would block that you do. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what it's going to be. And so right now, the biggest challenge, honestly, is the fact is that you have this research that's taking place within the data science, within AI, as well as within blockchain. But that all has to filter down into the applications that all of us use every single day, like Zoom, like Teams, like Slack, YouTube, all of these things where we get information, Twitter, things like that, where we're going to have to pull all that in. There's going to have to be a mechanism in which these types of data tags can flow in transparently. Because if we have to spend a lot of time on it, if it's resource intensive for the consumer of the information to validate the information, then the value of it disappears, because AI runs away from you at that point. And that's why it takes networks and it takes systems to fight networks and systems, because over time they're going to run away from you. But what it allows, if you can create the systems and the networks that are going to fight these networks and systems, you can essentially create a parity right there, maybe even move up. And it allows you to focus more on the creative side instead of having to sit there and what Nick Sonnenberg talks about in his book, and where he says, you're working on work, right? So if you're spending more time, researching on research, then that's going to be the problem. Does that make sense, what I said? I don't know if that made any sense.
Thank you very much. I've got another question, but I'd rather somebody else go.
I think you can go, Randy.
Great. For someone that works on, ChatGPT a little bit, on a daily basis, I'm fooling around with it. And I've had a lot of fun with it, a lot of really cool results. What do you recommend for somebody what's the best way to really get entrenched with it to understand it more? Is it videos from YouTube, or is there a book, or what would you recommend?
Certainly YouTube, but it also depends on what your learning modality is, right? So, for some people, it's like, I'm a Colby 3287, And my cold learning style is that I have to do stuff where I just play around with it. So for us, what we did was we accessed the Microsoft Azure's open AI platform and just start just playing a little bit with it, right? So you just get familiar with it. But that's my learning style. For some people, reading the papers that are coming out, because there are a lot of white papers, there are a lot of explanations on it. So it sort of depends on where you want to go with it. I wouldn't say that there's one best way to do it. There's great content on all the modalities. For me, I have to sit there and fail fast and fail forward continuously to learn the technology and bring that back to my team. That's just the way that I end up leading them, because then I can assemble the different ideas, which is sort of what I do, and basically, you know, make sure that the teams are targeting that. But it depends sort of on what, you know, are you looking to build a technology, or are you looking just to be aware what's going on? We're very much looking to build it.
I would hire someone to add on to some additional things so I can experiment. You know, basically, I happen to be in the commercial real estate business, and I see there's a lot of technology that I think that my brain is telling me I could do. Now I've got to assemble a team and start putting that together and experimenting with it.
So we are so this is just on a pure tech side. So most of our systems run inside of Amazon Web Services, but the Microsoft Open AI platform is the best one that we know of right now. There's some other ones that are going to be great too, but in terms of really being able to get in easy and start working with Open AI, that's where we went.
Okay, great. Well, you've got a fascinating life, and thank you for being able to join the call and sharing.
No, thank you. Thanks, Lee. Appreciate it.
You know, Pete, I have a question on this too. You know, we have different industries and different people on this, and a lot of people will be watching this video because they're not able to be here today. But in terms of AI, you know, I mean, I've read something that says AI will never rise above or below the standards that the community has. You know what I mean? In other words, because it's just a reflection of the community, of the people that are operating it, and so we have a call to it. Is it safe to say that AI is going to affect every single industry?
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it, right? I mean, and you know, we have been interacting with AI for many, many years already, and we just don't see it, right? So when like those different chat bots and tools like that, when you're interacting with, you know, help desks that are saying, look at this, and they're doing that, those are early versions of assembling it, right? So, and I'll give you another example of bad AI. Some of you may remember early on when we would get an email and it was just random English words that you're like, who on earth did this, right? It's just literally looked like somebody just took a Scrabble board and threw it on the floor and turned that into an email. Well, what that was, people said, oh, that's just stupid. Nobody's going to fall for that. Well, that was the AI engine warming up, right? So that was the AI. It didn't care because email was free, right? So its cost of learning was nothing. And so what it was doing is it was scattering into buckets, you know, and creating confidence around it. And so it realized it was way cheaper for the machine to start at ground zero to learn than it was to have people sitting there and warming the engine up. So we've been dealing with AI on a bad level going back 20 years. But now now we're starting to see AI that's extremely efficient. We're like, where did this come from? And it is an email that is absolutely perfectly crafted. And so if that's where we are today, just imagine where we're going to be in 5 years. We need the networks, and we need the AI, and we should consider blockchain as technology to sort of make sure that AI stays in a good place. But we're all already dealing with it. And it's the extent to which we turn around and put it to work for us, either at a communal level or at a personal level, is that's the real question, right? How much are we personally going to step into it as opposed to just being consumers of it?
And I think too, as leaders, I think within each industry, it would be helpful to us to acknowledge. I have a question too. In other words, is there things that we can be doing with our families that we should be doing? I mean, that's probably haven't had much thought on that, but the question is always there. In today's world, what are the risks to our children? What are the risks to future generations? Are there things that we as leaders should be doing right now?
Lee, can I add something to your question? How can we empower our children at an early age to become familiar with AI in a way that is positive? My kids, I don't know what they know about AI. It might be even more than I do, but how can I shepherd them into utilizing it as a tool for growth and empowerment as opposed to whatever negativity that it can create as well?
That's a really good question, Jay. And I don't think that there's really there are good platforms for that yet that are dedicated to that, right? So that, I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked at if Salman Khan has something out there in Khan's Academy or anything like that, but that's a really, really good question. So that's, I don't know. There's an opportunity right there, right? Because I haven't seen anything that specifically is about teaching sort of the ethical as well as technology aspect to AI.
I think Khan Academy,
yeah.
I mean, what you've seen with, are you familiar with Khan Academy right now, Pete, and what they're doing? Is everybody familiar with KAA?
Yeah, Economigo. It's Economigo, and it's
Economigo.
it is a good learning tool. It is a good AI use of AI.
Yeah, it is.
Little baby, one more, get in there. Try this side.
Okay, David, can you mute everybody automatically? Okay, just a second. There we go. Okay. The Economigo, those, and you're familiar with it a little bit. Pete, are you familiar with Economigo?
I am.
Maybe just explain to everybody what that is, because I think that's really important for people to know about, and it falls along a little bit of the lines what Jay was asking.
Yeah, it's really the next generation of Khan Academy. That's what it is, and the reason why we've been looking to it is because of there's a generative component to it, which is what we're looking at. And so without getting into, we've just sort of looked at it from outside. There's probably people that know more about the details. We're actually more interested for the how as opposed to the what, right? So we're not necessarily consumers of it. What we are I'll tell you really quickly what we're working on. We are developing a crisis management platform for organizations so that they can go through an exercise. They can take their leaders together, and there's a crisis. The crisis could be a ransomware that has brought that's impacting, life-saving stuff. It could be a PR crisis or something like that. And most organizations don't get the opportunity to go through that. And so leaders are never really battle tested until it's really battle. And that's just sometimes too late to figure out if to shake out what those procedures are. So what we're doing is we're building a company that is going to create these scenarios, these full immersion exercises where executives can bring in key leadership, key junior leadership, technical leadership, and then go through and just get the tar beat out of them for about 2 days, in which there is generative AI. So we have, basically essentially a custom Twitter feeds, and there's all this, and there's cyber attacks. And the idea is for them not to beat the system, but it is to learn how to collaborate and recover quickly. And so most people focus on what they can do to avoid risk. We're trying to figure out what can you do to recover from risk in which you sort of where there was a system that collapsed. So that's what we're working on. And that's what we need the AI for, why we're looking at it.
Very cool. I think we'll come back to Khan Academy. I want to have some comments on that, but Steve, you had your hand up real quick. And I know, Pete, you've got to leave here in about a minute.
I do. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Steve Goldblum, you're on mute. You have your hand up. Is that?
I got it. So the quick question is, between ChatGPT, the Microsoft Azure, OpenAI, is it an or type thing, or you go get your subscription to the ChatGPT and then the Microsoft OpenAI Azure is more for you to use with your company to put into your own stuff? Is that what the idea is?
Exactly. Yeah. ChatGPT is an end user implementation of AI, right? That's not you developing AI. That is basically what it is, it's a demo of what AI can do, right? And OpenAI and Azure is where you develop your own engines around it. You develop your own portfolio of AI.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Can-
And we'll see
I'll
you.
hop back in 30 minutes, Lee, if that's okay. I forgive me, I have a little bit of a situation that I'm dealing with. Apologize. I'll be back in 30 minutes.
Let us know in advance and appreciate it very much. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Lee. See you. Bye.
You know, I'm going to say this in terms of the Khan Academy, the things that as I've looked into it, and you can go in and sign up for it. I think they're still looking for people to kind of test it, but rather than, you know, Khan Academy has been around to support teachers for years. And what it's doing now is that it's really going to be the new education. So when a child comes in and instead of coming in and saying, here's my math problem, give me the answer, it comes back at them and says, all right, what are the steps that you would take to find the answer? And then it doesn't just give it to them, it walks them through the steps. All right, first do this. Now, what's your answer? What did you get? Then, okay, with that, then take this and put it here. And you see what I'm saying? So it's the next generation of virtual education that's more adaptable. It's still not going to, and what it'll do though, ultimately, is it frees the teacher up to be the one that's actually working with the students, that understands the difference between student A and student B. Student A may have some emotional issues or some learning issues or certain C. It'll allow them to spend more time with the students and be able to, at the same time, provide them with a great education at the level that they are at, to be able to learn at the level that they are, and let the teacher work with them to support them. I can imagine there's going to be some great things come about as a result of it. And my recommendation, of course, is lean into it and be asking the questions, be out there asking the questions. And I'm grateful that we have people like Pete that's affiliated with us, that's out there working it, because he's a good resource to come in and talk these things through. So was this helpful to bring this in?
Yes.
Everybody, yeah. I mean, are you asking questions right now about your industry, how you can use artificial intelligence to make it even better? You know, we talk about empowering questions. That's an empowering question that has to be there. I wouldn't worry about the answer. I would worry more about the question. Are you asking the right questions? How can I use AI to do the following? What kind of AI is there out there that can help me do this? When you start focusing in on the answers, the problem is it's going to just continue. Your subconscious mind continues to tell you all the reasons why you need that answer. We want to be working on the question. So as you continue to work through this, the questions will lead you to the answers. Okay, thank you. I hope you are okay with me kind of bringing Pete in at that moment. I talked to him and knew that I was planning on him coming at the end, but I wasn't sure how the end was going to end up. So I thought I'd insert him in. You all have received, there's a couple things that we want to encourage you to. Those of you that are in the river and some of you that are coming into the river, you've been asked, we're trying to get everybody to do a questionnaire on themselves and to put it in so we can put it into, let me just share my screen again. This is mine. Amanda may be the first guinea pig on this, but nonetheless, probably if she had not have been the last one to do it. But what we're really looking for here is identifying, where did everybody go here? Just a second. Well, Dave, can everybody still see me all right? Dave was on mute.
No, I can see you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but we can see your Zoom webpage.
Right, good. Okay. You're
Okay.
seeing what I'm talking about, right?
I think it's the wrong thing. I think they're saying you're sharing the wrong screen, maybe.
Yeah.
Or the wrong tab.
Okay,
It's saying on the left hand upper.
let's do it again here. Hold on. How about now?
There we go. Yep, good.
Okay.
There's you.
All right. Well, we're looking for something where we can come in to, and kind of see what everybody's doing, a little bit about their background, have a little bit of history as we continue to grow. We've got a couple new members on the call today. We're going to be adding some more. We have not opened the gate, and it's just until just recently, but to be able to come in and say, oh, that's that guy. Okay. Look, he's got his family, well, and then we want to get more into about what you do, what you're able to do. And, and so these are just questions that we have in here. What's missing that just dawned on me too would be a background of what you do for a living. Just dawned on me. So we'll update that.
Yeah.
Those of you that have done it, as we continue, we can kind of update that, and we'll update the page as you do. I just want to encourage you as you receive these, it's important that you take the time to put it together. We can come in and see the links, the websites, the email. We can bring in the other things. And one of the things that I'm going to take the second right now, but is there any reason why you cannot do that? How's that for a good question? Okay. Is there any reason why you cannot take the time to do that or have somebody help you do that?
Not a good one.
Not a good one. Okay. And I meant to do this earlier, Lori. You have no warning on this whatsoever. But would you be willing to share with everybody what's going on with Wacky? For those of you,
Softball tournament?
yeah, and yes, specifically the softball tournament. Tell them a little bit of history about it briefly, and then what's going on. And I think what's most interesting is to just share a couple of the little stories, how people are responding to it.
No, too hard. No. Oh, gosh, we are going to have a fight later. No, so we're getting ready to host our 16th softball tournament, but it's going to be our last. So I'm passing the torch. Oh, killing me. But, oh, geez. 1 minute. Gosh.
Okay, let me give you a little background, just a little background.
You're going to do the back? I can do the background.
Okay.
So when our son Nick was in remission, he wanted to raise some money because he went to a super cool camp for young adults with cancer. So we hosted our first softball tournament because that's what both of our daughters did. And so we raised money for research and then also for adventures for young adults with cancer. So while Nick was alive, the softball tournaments were just the normal fly by the seat of our pants, and we didn't have that many teams, but people loved it. And then when he died, we lost the context of the importance of it. So we brought kids with cancer to join our softball teams. And so each team is assigned a child with cancer to play for during the tournament. And over the years, it's by far the most popular tournament in the state. The teams have a blast. The cancer kids have a blast. It's phenomenal. And we found a person, a cancer mom actually reached out to me. Her father is a softball umpire. And she reached out a couple weeks ago and asked if she could be the one to take over the tournament. And so she's going to shadow me this year and see if she's up to the task. But we're going to have a huge appreciation dinner for all the umpires, volunteers, donors the day before the tournament starts. So we will be able to finally express our true gratitude to everybody that's helped us make it such a success. And it's going to be a lot of fun. But we have had a lot of cancer children or children with cancer write to me saying, can we please have we need to play with our girls. There's so many. And we have, gosh, dang it. We have a lot of teams that have the same child. Oh, this is really hard. My favorite example is we had, we had a child who was sent home to his home, and he had treatment in New York, but he wasn't going to make it. So they flew him home. Well, the team that was playing for him had connections with the fire department. So they were able to get all the paramedics, the sheriff department, the fire department. Anyway, they escorted this little boy from the airport all the way to his home, and they went through 2 different counties. So they involved the first responders from 2 different counties to escort this little boy home. And then he passed away shortly afterwards. But the ripples keep going because the mom obviously had a very, very difficult time just existing. And so she was posting things on social media, and she would just say, I am not doing well. Well, this team adopted her and asked her to be an assistant coach. And when we were considering not even hosting it this year, just calling it a wrap, but this mom sent me an email saying, thank you for this tournament. It literally saved my life because they are representing my son. They're shouldering my grief. And so when we got that message, we're like, shoot, we have to play one more time. But the emails and the texts have been flying in this year, and the stories are just fantastic. So just the community effort to support each other is just phenomenal. And I think we're playing for 5 angels this year. We've got about a dozen new little kids that they're brand new to the world of cancer. And so, but our teams, they don't care. They just say, give us your child. And they represent him with just pure love. It's magical. Okay, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
When is the tournament and where?
It's September 7th or 8th and 9th. And we play way out in the boondocks because the fields are free. But we have 24 teams. And then, of course, we have 24 children with cancer. And it's a blast. It's a blast.
So help me understanding where the Boondocks is.
It's called Tooele, Utah. It's on I-80 when you're heading to Reno out of Salt Lake.
It's about a half an hour outside of Salt Lake, going west. And it's the whole thing with Wacky is going to continue on, and it's going to continue to be involved in it. And I'm making an offer right now to anybody in the river. If you have some sort of a foundation or something that you want to raise money for, and there's a way that we can Wacky-ize it, let us know. We've done this for a number of different events. We did one for the U.S. soccer team, that fundraiser once. They Wacky-ized it. They raised about twice as much money as they'd raised the year before. We have a formula. If you come to the tournaments, you'll see girls dressed up in wacky clothes. And we've done golf tournaments where we've had people come dressed wacky, but the tournament itself is wacky. Or you might tee off one hole with oven mitts on to see how far you can hit it. You might have another hole where we have a 2-handed putter where you have to putt with a partner at the same time. We've done a lot of fun things that way. We're open to other ways to help you raise more money, and then part of that could be attributed to, kids, young adults, and living with cancer. So that's open. Another thing too is I made a great discovery. Some of you know about this, but for 4 years or 5 years, I was a partner with John Wooden on putting out the National John Wooden Award every year, and Coach John Wooden. And I would always take basketballs in and get them signed, and because I figured that'd be, we could always use them, and we used them for charity and this kind of thing. But I didn't realize it, that I couldn't figure out where they'd all gone. And I knew we had some basketballs in storage, and I thought they were just basketballs, but guess what? They're all signed by John Wooden. And so having that found, if anybody has a fundraiser or a way that they could use it to raise money, we've had them go at auction for as much as $8,000 for basketball. But especially in an environment, if you're in Indiana, for sure, it'll go, or LA. But he's got such a great reputation still. So.
And then just one quick note is we also, for any team that does a fundraising for their child, we will match it dollar for dollar up to $2,500. And last year we had 6 teams that maxed out at $2,500 that goes directly to their child. So I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. So anyway, we're just putting it out there for you. Lori, of course, didn't know I was going to do this, and but I figured if I'd have asked her, I may not have got her to do it. So I'm grateful, Lori. Thank you for doing that. Thank you. So would you be willing to kind of help? I'd like to envision a little bit about the river and where it's going. We've had practice with the river now for a couple of years. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4 convergences. We had our very first convergence, which is where we went rock climbing in Moab. We then did one here. We've done one in Phoenix and one in San Antonio. And so we plan on having convergences about every 6 months. We have one scheduled for October. We're going to be in the New York area. Actually, technically, we're in New Jersey. We'll be by Princeton. But we're looking at, we've got some really fun things that we're doing. Some of you that know about traditions, about our tablecloth traditions and how we draw the hands and stuff. We're going to be doing some things for families that are the underprivileged families and providing them with some of this. We'll have a chance to work on it. The last time we went to San Antonio, we built some bicycles and gave them to the YMCA. I haven't confirmed it. I've had a discussion and I have a conversation later on today with John Levy. And there's a couple of other people too that are lined up out there that could be a possibility. I serve on a board with, and I was just thinking today about this. I serve on a board with Jim Lair, Loehr, and we have a tentative board meeting scheduled for the weekend right before our convergence. And Jim Lair, for those of you that don't know, he's founder of the Human Performance Institute, which he sold recently, and he's now created what he calls the Youth Performance Institute. And so there's a possibility that we could do something with them as well. We're putting all these final positions in it this week. But I just got thinking and look at this as, and by no way am I, but wouldn't it be cool? And this is probably a 1% chance, but Lori and I have developed a pretty strong relationship with Seal, the entertainer. And if he happens to be there that weekend before, then there's a pretty good chance that we could maybe get him to stop by, and pop in on our convergence. I think that would be a fun experience. He is a kind-hearted, big-hearted person, and he's been influenced by the river mindset in terms of how he does his performances and how he interacts with the crowd. We talked to him recently after a performance, and he just said, I just love doing this now. He says, I'm doing it because, he says, what I realized is that the people aren't there for me. And, these women are all, if you go there, a lot of people are yelling, we love you, we love you, we love you. And he stopped him in the middle and he said, wait a second. It's not me that you love. I love you too, and I know you love me, but it's the music. It's the music that you love because of the feelings that you get when you hear that music. And it's the feelings of love that you get. And it's those feelings that you think about the people that you love. You think about the people in your life that you love. And I'm just the person that's helping you have those feelings. So I understand when you're yelling that, but at the same time, know that I understand and what it's really about. And that's been an interesting shift that he's claimed has just happened recently in the way that he's approached what he's doing. And he's just taking on the river mindset. That's what he's doing. Arrows out. It's not all about him. It's not all about him. And that's kind of nice. So maybe, who knows? Maybe we can get him. Wouldn't that be cool? But we'll see. Like I say, don't count on it. I'm just saying that if he's going to be there, I'm going to twist his arm. We'll see if we can't make something like that happen. But let me tell you a little bit about John Levy too. A couple things that I think is very appropriate time-wise. He wrote a book called You're Invited. He's probably got as much information on how to build communities as anybody that I've ever met. And he's originally, he and his wife are from Russia. Pete knows, Pete and I worked, I got Pete involved with him one night. I was with John and we were down in Mexico actually. And he was trying to figure out how to get his mother-in-law, a father-in-law across the border from Russia just to get him out of Russia. And so we worked on night. I got Pete involved in it. And what it turned out to be is we didn't really help him, but we were there working with it to try to get it done. We worked out a way to where he had been put on his no-flight list because he had tried to get out before and they put him on a no-flight list. Getting across the border was almost impossible. But what happened was that his wife, his wife's mother, was able to sneak back in, get him in the middle of the night. They knew a border they could cross over, and they had arranged it, and so they were able to get across and get him out. Got a lot of history there. But where John excels, he's writing a new book now, and the new book is on leadership and how, and to some extent, we put too much emphasis on the leaders and not enough on the workers, the followers, if you will. And so think about it from this standpoint. If you have a golfer, all he cares, he's the leader and all the attention goes to the leader. There's just one of them. But let's say you have a basketball team and you have the best player, but if he doesn't have a good team around him, he'll never get the ball. There'll be all kinds of problems. Now you expand that out and you take, say, like a soccer team or a football team, and now you can still have the very best player. And if everybody else is working in harmony, then you want to put more emphasis on the other people in the other team. And so he's done a ton of research on that, and I think it's very appropriate to what we're doing in terms of how we're working with families and businesses and where we're going with that. And I think he would be an excellent person to come in and spend some time with us. So fingers crossed. He's got it on his calendar, but we'll confirm it today. And so I hope to be there. So I think that'll be good.
Hey, Lee, it's Gordon here. Just to kind of second your, I got to meet John recently. I was with Nick. Nick and John came to an event that one of the agents here at the Compass, the company that we run in New York City, and they both came to one of these events, and I caught up with him and he signed the book and he gave it to me and he met our founder, and what a great guy. I'm about halfway through the book. By the way, Nick was also singing your and Lori's praises because he got to go see Seal with you with his girlfriend last minute in Vegas. And he had a great time there. So super excited. I think John's going to be great. And his book, I'm not finished with it yet, but it is really, it's really made me think a lot about the approach with people and how you lead. So thank you for arranging all that. I just, and I share in your excitement if we can make that happen.
Yeah, that'll be really good. Good. Thank you for that. That'll be, I think, helpful. So I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that with everybody else. So going back to the river, how can we make it? Look, we do not want to be, I do not want it to be, I can talk about me. I do not want this to be the next, the next genius network. Not that I'm against it. I think it's awesome. But truly, I want this to be an interactive, collective collaboration of like-minded thinkers, because I sense, and I don't know how you feel about it, but I sense more than ever right now, there's an assault on the family, on God, that's impacting our businesses. It's impacting the world that we live in. And I see the results that some of our members have had just within their companies. and the difference that they're making in their communities because of their influence as entrepreneurs. And so how can we do more of that? How can we help each other become even better in what we're doing? And how can we distinguish ourselves apart from some organization that's out there creating a group like this so they can make a ton of money? I mean, let's face it. I don't know how to say it any other way. You know, I mean, when I look at all the industries all out there, and I'll tell you another kind of a vision of a dream of what I'm having, really. You take a particular industry, so say take like the financial services industry. And the financial services industry, I just found out that E-Trade just got bought by Morgan Stanley. Okay. I think that's who bought them. And I look at that and I say, okay, this is very interesting what's going on. And so I put in an investment, put the investment out there. Somebody takes a pinch on that. And usually the person that takes a pinch, no offense, is a really good schmoozer. You know, he's really good at schmoozing. He knows how to get families, get things going like that. But the work's being done behind the scenes, kind of comes in there, and then they're the ones that have to deliver the message, craft the message, keep the relationship strong, the relationship builders. They take a piece, it moves up the ladder, somebody else takes a piece, somebody else takes a piece, somebody else takes a piece, and it finally hits the top, goes over the top to where the investments are, goes over the top, and down as it goes over the top, now that person, whoever brought that in, has to take a piece. They deserve it. And then you've got the project itself, and then the profits of the project work its way back up after they've taken their profits out, work it back up to the top. And this is where you have all these layers in this whole process. And when it gets to the top, and I'm not opposed to that, I'm not a person, people taking risk and all that kind of stuff. And it gets to the top, it pauses, and it pauses for that moment because he's got to make, whoever's at the top has to make a decision. Do I give it to the shareholders or do I give it to the investors? If I give it to the shareholders, I get a bonus, a huge bonus. How big have you seen some of those bonuses? You could go out and buy a world-class yacht with some of those bonuses. Okay, I mean, I'm not talking about just 7-figure bonuses. I'm talking about 8 and 9-figure bonuses. Who paid for that? So we're seeing a thing called, note holder primacy or investor shareholder primacy, this kind of thing. Instead of stakeholder primacy, we're seeing shareholder primacy going over the top, going down the other side. And then it comes back to the investor. Well, imagine a group like ours, imagine at some point in time, we could go beyond. I mean, I think focusing in on the relationship of having a divine purpose that focuses in on family and business, but all this, our collective ability to really make a difference we need to put some questions out there. So this is a question, I'm not making a recommendation, but imagine if that was all owned by the depositors, that they actually had an algorithmic share in that money, and it was also set aside for the development of future generations, where we could have, so imagine a trust company, for example, and the trust company is established to also get a good return. You hire the best managers, et cetera, like that. You still get a good return. It can be, we could focus it more on societal investments, impact investing, whatever we wanted to do. But at the same time, instead of 100 million going out in bonuses at the very top, what if we put that into the next generation, into educating generations? And we've started a program that Ann and Bob can tell you about it. I congratulate, kudos to them, because they went out on their own and they reached out to some other people who are not necessarily entrepreneurial maybe, but not entrepreneurs per se by definition, and have started what we call the River's Edge. And EDGE stands for Educating and Developing Generations to Excel. This is a test pilot program. I'm sure it's not going to end up the way we think it is. It can be a precursor to what we're talking about. Imagine that we have an EDGE trust company where we're educating and developing generations to excel as part of the purpose. We can do more than just become a social group. That's my point. We can become more than just a social group. if we have the right people with the right mindset that truly, believe that they can make a difference with their entrepreneurial mindset, I think we can make a huge difference. So as you look at it, this was sent out to everybody, and this is wet clay. You understand what I mean when I say wet clay? Does everybody understand what I mean when I say wet clay? Right? That it's work in progress, that we're putting it together. Can you see this? I'm gonna make sure I got the right thing up there this time. Do you see this? It says, "Are you a ThRiver?"
Yeah, you're
All
right. You got it.
This is a letter. I'm just saying, if somebody was interested in becoming a ThRiver, this is a letter that I put out. It's wet clay. You should all have a copy of this, but really we focus on the core principles of empowered wealth, which is just true wealth, enduring wealth, wealth that lasts, those things that we value more than money. So it encompasses our core experience, contribution, financial, in pursuit of enduring leadership, which means it doesn't end, it goes on. We're committed to elevating not only ourselves, but our families, communities, and businesses. Using through the powerful lens of gratitude, personal responsibility, we navigate challenges, et cetera, et cetera. We get kindred spirits, extraordinary individuals who are like-minded in what they're doing, and come together on this unparalleled journey. So urgency, where are the leaders who can guide us through this relentless assault on families, faith, and virtue? And we're living in the VUCA world, and there are like-hearted leaders and like-minded leaders that can unite and help each other. Truly arrows out. In vision, not a destination, but an ever-expanding horizon. So basically, I, as most of you know, and I think a lot of you are like me, I have no finish lines, no destinations. I'm more interested in the journey. And so how do we create the journey that provides the strength that we want to have? So together we nurture authentic leadership skills, providing hope, stability, confidence for ourselves. And then what's the success criteria? So I started, okay, what is the success criteria for us to survive and build as ThRivers together? So every member actively contributes to discussions, shares their experiences and knowledge, and takes part. Engagement, entanglement, okay, think of entanglement being those roots underneath those trees. Levels remain consistently high. Engagement also means active and respectful communication. So if we count on you to be at a meeting and you say you're going to be there, you be there. You know what I mean? We can count on each other. We can trust each other. And if we can't make it, we understand that too. Empowered wealth, Debbie, you asked if we could send you the core principles of empowered wealth. The answer to that, yes, we'll send it to everybody. Okay. All members understand and embrace applying empowered wealth principles. This adherence is reflected in the overall quality of discussions and the values that the group upholds. Vibrant collaboration. There's a difference between cooperation. Cooperation just means we agree to work together. Collaboration means we agree to create together. Are you willing to step up? Everything we do is challenged to make it even better. So in endurance and stability, we thrive over time. Its presence becomes a constant, reliable source of learning, growth, and camaraderie for its members. The group consistently attracts new like-minded members and continuously positive impact the leadership approaches of its members. I don't know. So we're going to be asking questions on what we can do to make this even better. Measurable improvement in leadership skills. Members demonstrate improved leadership abilities in their respective fields, which can be traced back to their engagement with the group. This can be measured through feedback, member success stories, or specific leadership assessment tools. Okay, best case scenario, ThRivers becomes a recognized, respected global platform for authentic leadership growth with an engaged membership actively applying empowered wealth principles and making contributions to their families, professions, community. Worst case scenario, rates are low, discussions are superficial, off topic, we don't engage, and the group's influence and impact are negligible. So the real question is, how can we make ThRivers even better? So this is where I want your thoughts, especially, you know, those of you that have been involved for some time, those of you that are new, that are naive newcomers, you have a new perspective to look at it. You're the outsiders looking in. What things are you looking for to make the river even better? So would you be willing to just think on that for just a second? Kind of a pause, open to ideas on how, when, you know, those of you that have been involved, those of you been to convergences, those of you that are seeing stream teams, those of you don't know what a stream team is. Stream teams are where like-minded thinkers in groups of up to 5 get together on a regular basis, just an accountability call. And this is what we're doing. This is what we're excited about this week, or this is a challenge that we're having, and we can kind of work on it. There's some areas that I think for me that are missing that I don't know how to fill. And those are areas that are more related to how do we keep the family leadership aspect of it involved in what we're doing. I think that's an essential part of why we're all coming together. And it's just too easy for us to get stripped on to only business, but we want to make that link with the family and what we're doing with the family and create that as a major part. Like was said earlier from the book by Campbell, that there is, what he recognizes, there is no difference between leadership in the family and leadership in the business. The same principles apply. And if we're truly going to have an impact, I think, on society going forward, what can we do differently? And we may not know all the answers right here, but certainly if we can get some thought on a few things, that would be very helpful.
Lee, if I could, because Ann and I have this framework that we have been talking about together with you, I think something that would be helpful for us to define is what is the definition of empowered wealth principles?
Well, let's just say right now, you know, we have principles, but it's more organizational principles. I think that the principles that you're talking about, that we're talking about, are the ones that center on the 4 quadrants. You know, when you start looking at core, what are those things that are valued most? Our family, our health. What are those things we wouldn't trade for more money? Our family, our health, our principles, our values, our experiences. You know, it's really just looking at the quadrants and looking at through those eyes. And then how do we grow that? How do we grow these other things, you know, to make that happen? So when we say empowered wealth principles, we have principles at Empowered Wealth, but there are company principles.
Right.
I think the underlying principles that we talk about when we're saying empowered wealth principles are those, are those principles that relate to those things that we value as much, but as we value more than money, realizing that the financial quadrant is essential in terms of creating value, and has a play with it, but you know, it overlaps with all of the other.
Well, and I think one thing that I was planning on sharing tonight at our second event is not only the quadrants, so let me see if I can figure that, but how they're tied to each other. And how can we help the people that we're working with see how everything is intertwined with each other? Because everyone that is involved in this has a strong core, has strong experience. They're strong in contributions. Financial takes care of itself, but helping them to visualize how contributions are tied to the core, how core is tied to experience, so on and so forth. I think that that's something that resonates with me that I think I can share.
I think that's good. I think that's really good. I think that one of the things while we're here, I want you to think about in terms of the activities, what things, those of you that have been in the river for some time, draw you to the river? What things, what do you want to see more of? you know, in terms of your own growth, what do you think that other people like you would like to see more of? How can we make it, you know, even stronger in the areas that we're working in? So just think about, you know, what are those areas that you would like to see strengthened, and throw out ideas, or, you know, how can we do this? Could we do this? Could we do that? This is what we're looking for. What's going to look, think about other associations that you've been involved with. Are they interesting or interested? You know, a lot of organizations, and I'm not saying that they're bad, but a lot of the groups that you can get together, people get together purely for making connections. You know, like, oh, look, I get to meet so-and-so, and I get to meet so-and-so. I'll make some new connections for my business. And but how can we come together, recognizing that this is a cause that we can say to people, join us, because this is how we're making a difference, you know. And I think about the things that, you know, Mark Bodner's not with us today, but I think about the difference that he's made. And here's a company that's been acquired by a private equity company, and we're losing the culture. And we're seeing it happen right for our eyes. And you know, and that's a challenge. It's a challenge. And, you know, you look at what Derek Wright has done with his company, you know, where hard hats to heroes. And you see billboards that say strengthening families, you know, shaping communities. Oh, by the way, we pour cement. These are the kinds of things that you can see that we can make a difference. But your thoughts, are there ways that you think we could involve families more? Is there a way that we could involve young adults, young children? I mean, I just want to kind of explore anything and everything right now. So I'm putting it out to you guys. You guys are the pioneers. I'm putting it out for your thoughts on it. Is Thomas on the call? I know I see you're there. You're probably where you can't do a video, but are you there?
I'm here, Lee. Yeah, I don't have video today. Sorry.
That's okay. No, I just wanted to know if you were there, because I always appreciate your opinion. Everybody say hi to Thomas. He's a new member. He's our newest member.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You know, Lee, I think one of the things that would help me, as you know, my daughter's involved in many of our companies. And by the way, our background is being one of those evil private equity group guys. My wife is less than thrilled in doing another entrepreneurial organization with me. Yeah, she served 20 years in the military, and she still is very remiss that she married an entrepreneur. So, you know, I'd love to have other people's feedback on that, because I do think it's a value when it's, you know, when we're launching these things together. So that's a piece that I'd like to see. So I appreciate that the family is a big part of this. My kids are very much a part of it. And, you know, other than the business, but it's a huge part of our life. And as you know, even with challenges. So I think that's one of the pieces there to add in.
And it's, all right, so give me a succinct, give me a question. How can we?
Well, so the question is without being able to explain really what and I don't know if it's the right word, this first event retreat, her thought of going on a retreat is she's retired. She doesn't want to be participating in that. How do I get her to participate somewhat in that? Or, you know, what is it acceptable just continue to go by myself, which is fine. And that's probably where we've been, in this segment. So that, I guess that's the question. Is the right question just come by myself at this point and continue to build it that way?
Anybody have thoughts on that?
Hey, Thomas, this is Jay. I don't know that we've met before, but one of the things you mentioned as you shared your situation was you shared what your wife wasn't looking forward to. Can you tell us what she is looking forward to? What does she enjoy? What's her passion? And where does that where does that meet with what you're trying to accomplish, and how can you reframe the activity around the joint things that you're looking to do together? Not in a manipulative way, but where are you looking for some value from this, and what are those values that she shares with you?
And Jay, I appreciate that. For me, it's been when she and I met, we met on the ski hill coaching, and I was in a pretty passive income position at that point, and she was still working. She was still with the military, and then she retired, and then I launched a new company. And so when we were dating through that process, she wasn't used to the entrepreneurial side of me, but it's a big part of, I'm closing in on 60, and it's been a big part of most of my experience of starting my first company when I was 12. So she's found the entrepreneurial road to be challenging and something that she just would rather that not be a part of our life. But it is a big part of me, right? And it's a big part of my two of my 4 children. It's a big part of what they do as well.
Now, you mentioned that you both were coaching a ski school. Is that correct?
Coaching professional and amateur athletes. So yes.
Is that something she was passionate about?
Yeah, she's very much active at even Olympic level training of athletes, and specifically she's a biochemist finishing up her doctorate on study for menopausal women. So health and that type is important.
So she spends her time bringing out the best in people, their abilities, and helping them to hone their skills.
Absolutely, relative to health and physical. Yep.
Is there any overlap with what you're trying to do?
No, because every one of our entrepreneurial ventures is pretty much in the financial services, but different than what most people think of financial services here. We bring capital to companies and then help them launch. So we're not an investment advisor. We invest in companies and then generally coach the entrepreneurs along through the ventures. And unfortunately, the last 5 years has been dealing with a battle with the U.S. government. And so her experience with what the last 5 years has kind of tarnished her on what our business is like. That risk versus reward is not there.
Yeah, I hear this theme about helping people. You're trying to help businesses get to where they want to go. She's trying to help athletes to where they want to go. I wonder if there's some kind of overlap there where you can bring out her skill sets and the direction of the company. Again, I don't know enough, but I'm listening for the similarities rather than the differences.
And I appreciate that, Jay. And it's good focus. What I'm dealing with is right now just a little bit of gun shy.
Hey, Lee, I'm just going to speak because my hand's raised and I'm just going to do it anyway. Jay, I think you're doing a great job of asking some great questions, Jay. I don't know you personally, and I'm really happy to listen to the way you're bringing Thomas through. Thomas, a little bit more assertively, I'll say, Lee, what is it went on in my head, the experience that Eden and I went through with you more than one time, separated by 5 years.
So we call it the Horizon Spring.
I just lost it. Go ahead.
Horizon Springboard.
All right. So Thomas, there's an exercise called the Horizon that Lee may or may not have shared with you. It would probably be invaluable for you to attend. And secondly, I would say that what Jay was trying to get across to you is that, what's your wife's first name?
Reva.
Reva is going to be in heaven if she comes to this thing and be with a bunch of people who are trying to do exactly what she wants to do. I know 2 different women, only because I was in the conversation. One was with my wife that were fighting menopause and having a whole big thing. I've led people through it. There's leadership in so many different places for athletes. Basically, it's a room full of leaders. And if your wife ends up in the room and just say, hey, let's take a trip to Philadelphia and have a nice day and an event. If you don't want to go, you don't want to go. Just hang loose and just have her travel with you and enjoy the city. And she'll meander into a session or 2, and then you'll see what happens. Just ask her to take a couple of days off with you and come meet some nice people that are in the same thing she's in, and then let go of the result. She can stay in the hotel room. She can visit. She can do other things in Philadelphia, or wherever we're happen to be. But I think Jay just nailed it on the head. You're doing the exact same things, and you're a high-powered run-go private equity kind of guy. And I hear you for investment advisors. I'm kind of understand who you are. At the end of the day is step back and take a look around. And I'm just throwing out at you. And Avi could have probably said it better than me or somebody else, but I'm just saying to you.
I think that's very helpful to say, if they come and there's very little expectation, that's the best way to ease it in.
Okay,
Yes.
Lori, you have your hand up.
I have a suggestion. Speaking as being a spouse of an entrepreneur, when Lee would attend different events in our early years of marriage, he'd come back and tell me, blah, 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 everything was so exciting. And you're just happily nodding, saying that's nice. But once I attended a particular event with them, then I totally got it. So my suggestion would be, if your wife is willing, have her reach out to some of the wives that have attended. So we have a ton of spouses that have come, that have been in the exact situation as your wife, where you're like, what in the world are you dragging me to now? It's just another meeting, blah, 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 blah. But I think if she got some insights from some of the spouses that have attended, not so much as against their will, but not necessarily fully on board, and after what they felt having attended this event. So maybe she could just have some conversations. We've got a whole list of people she could talk to, but I totally understand her resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not, it was, I think, Thomas, thank you, Lori, and thank you, Steve, and thank you, Jay, for your words around that. I think that this is unique, and I don't know how to say it any other way. And the Horizon experience, Avi could speak to this. I mean, Daniel, there's just about everybody on this call that's been through the Horizon experience can talk about what happens. We just finished one last week, and it was just amazing. And every time I do it, I'm just thinking, wow, this is absolutely amazing. One of the things that I think is essential to do, though, is to figure out how some of you can start hosting if we're going to grow, how can you host some Horizon yourselves? Those of you that might be interested in doing that, how could you yourself host them? I think this is something that we could all work together on. It's something that I've been doing for over 10 years, probably longer than that. Actually, when I think about it, probably some of you might have even gone 10 years ago. I don't know. Avi, how long ago was it that you came through Horizon?
I would say 9, going on 10 years.
Yeah. And look at the changes in your life since you've been Horizon,
I've only known this journey to have begun with my spouse. And I see Paul and Christine here, and Debbie and Dave and others that I know have also done the Horizon. And so, as a community, those of you that know me, I'm always looking for universal truths. And one of the things that the Horizon did for me, which I think is true of our businesses and our communities, is to create a shared vision.
Hello.
Aligned our principles and gave us a shared toolkit to operate. And that alignment is priceless, because otherwise, there's lots of energy or thrusters going in different directions. But when you can get all that thrust and all that momentum aligned and working in uniform with a shared vision, with shared principles, and also toolkits, ways of communicating and problem solving, and a shared language, that's a very powerful formula.
Well, I can attest, just as recently as when we were in San Antonio, going through a group Horizon, a number of the spouses, 2 in particular, basically in an introductory period were saying, okay, well, I'm here because my husband said that I need to come. But what I saw over the course of the day and a couple of days following it, the convergence, is they mentioned at the end, they found their voice, and they went into the proposition going, well, who am I? Melanie, were you one of those? But and, you know, they were saying, you know, who am I? What do I have to add? I don't know. I don't feel that I'm worthy, you know, kind of from that kind of perspective. And over the course of the day, like I said, they did find their voice, and it was a great experience
Thank
to
you,
be
Bob.
part of and view.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. That's a good insight. You know, we've been toying with the group horizon concept. And we may or may not, I mean, we need to make that choice right away, do the same thing, maybe as a preempt, you know, at the beginning of it. It's not essential. I mean, it's the best, obviously. But Thomas, you share the responsibility with Riva, you know, for your family, for yourselves, for what you're doing. And so not everybody is able to bring their spouse to every event. I mean, so you'll come to a convergence and there'll be people there that because they got kids at home, or they've got these other things, or they've got a job, or they've got all kinds of things like this that happen. And I think if we can start to craft what we're doing in such a way that we have events periodically that can be focused exclusively for spouses. We can have events, even if it's just calls with specific speakers. We can have, you know, I mean, on topic with it. I would like to see some sort of a steering committee that includes the women with what we're doing. I think that there's an opportunity to really be more involved that way. Were you going to say something, Thomas?
No, I just, you know, I appreciate that. I do think that relative to my spouse, and again, my businesses were very mature when we got married, and her career was very mature, and my kids were adults and her son is not. So I've got this a bonus teenager now, which is awesome, who I met when he was 4. So we've been together 11 years. It is doing something that would be an outdoor activity, which we could host up at Lake Tahoe, right? So as you were looking for locations, we live in a great winter and summer place, would be a great, you know, way to look at that.
Good idea. Yeah, we like that. Okay.
We're in.
I appreciate the feedback. Yeah, and it is a very different space because, again, trusts and everything, very complex financials. I know a lot of people have been with their spouse for all of it. This was a second marriage when I never thought I was going to get married again scenario. So, but we've been together now 10 years, and it's, you know, it's nice to be focusing on this as I get ready to launch several ventures.
Yeah. Yep.
Thomas, can I just, one other thing I think is very important. You used the word entrepreneurial a few times. And I think what we all have in common is that we're business families and family businesses. But for me, this is much more like entrepreneurial wouldn't even come or cross my mind. For me, this has always been about connecting with what matters most in life, our essentials. And this gave my wife, Rachel, a platform for connecting with what mattered most to her at every stage of life and making sure the choices we were making were congruent with that and keeping that in front of things. So I think while it has an entrepreneurial nature to it, this was very much about optimizing our true wealth and living meaningful and impactful lives.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that was the invitation to her, and that's what attracted her. So she could connect with what was important to her at that stage and continue to do so, and that we could continue to stay aligned. And when that was the invitation, she had a much different perception of what we were doing here and what her opportunity was to benefit and to contribute.
That's great, Avi. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. And I think, you know, really, you know, I mean, Connie, for example, I know your situation's unique, and you have a husband that's an attorney, and then you have running an international business, and you've got, you know, it's just a matter of how you can put things together and the overlap. I think, Avi, I could not have said it any better than what you just said. I think that was the perfect expression of it. So listen, I want the door to be open. I'll have a copy of this thing, the agreement. You have a copy of what I put out. I said it's wet clay. I'm open to any suggestions you have. In fact, it'll thrill me to just see you, to see suggestions coming in, ideas coming in. I want you to feel that we're going at this arm in arm like the redwood trees. We're down there. We want to entangle our roots in such a way that if to blow one of us over, it's got to blow us all over. And Jay,
I was going to ask something, but I didn't want to interrupt. So I caught myself. You had asked earlier, what could we do as a suggestion? And I know I'm fairly new, so this may already exist, but your offer to keep this line of communication open to receive feedback, I think that's a great step towards improvement. But another thing too, in the spirit of collaboration, do you also have an area where, especially those who are new to the group, can go to find out what others are working on, to find out how they may be helpful, if not ask the right questions, just a way to get more familiar with the group to be a better resource?
I think that's a great question. Yes, it's top of mind for us. That's one of the reasons that we put out this questionnaire, to give an idea on what they're doing. And I think as I look at it, we could probably add a couple of questions to it. And then we'd have it. One of the things that we have that we haven't talked about is we have what we call a playbook, Jay. And in that playbook, you'll find, for example, if you want a video from a previous navigation call, or like when we had a previous speakers, like when Covey came in, or different people who come in and spoken to us, those are available to you in the playbook as a member of the River. And so all of those things then become available to you. So I think that you're there. We're trying to build that community. That's an excellent. It came as a question, but I took it as this is something that needs to be there. We talked about it, and it will be there. So, and then, John, I'm looking at yours right now before we go, and it's going to hit the time. But John said, I feel the biggest asset of the ThRivers is what's in the heads of the members. How do we unleash the power and all these brains to create a dynamic synergy that we can all learn from? Great question, John. Great question. Empowering question. I love it when I get questions. Not what I don't like it when we say I need to, have to, got to. Okay. But I love the questions. Well, listen, thank you all. We spent 2 hours together. I hope it was well worth your time. Pete, thank you for your time with us this morning. I think that was great.
Thank you.
And I look forward. I've got some ideas since your conversation that I think you and I would love to just kind of take it another step further if we could too.
Yeah. Maybe we can catch up next week. I don't know if that'll work for you. Okay.
Yeah, we'll make it work. Okay. And then Connie, you and I have a conversation to follow up on, and a couple of others. And Debbie and Dave, good to see you. I've got some follow-ups with both of you, and I'll follow up with you. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. Keep, look at this as a living, breathing going. We have a waiting list of people to get in, candidly, and I have not pushed the button. And so it's up to us to kind of brainstorm a little bit on how we can make this really, really better. So, and Thomas, let's get you a Horizon scheduled. I think that would be an amazing experience for you to come out and spend a couple of days with Lori and myself, and we do it very relaxed, and it's a good experience.
Awesome. I think that's getting put on the books now, Lee. I'm
okay.
Watching Kay work with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Well, thank you guys, and have a great month. We may have a September navigation call if I can get a guest speaker, and I've got somebody in mind. I think it'd be well worth your time. It won't be a 2-hour one, but probably an hour or so, but keep your eyes open. We'll see if we can't reach out for that one. Okay. Pete, did you have something else you wanted to say? I saw your hand jump up, but you might have been just scratching yourself. But anyway, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
All
Bye.
right, thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
See
you all.
later, Lee. Are we on for today?
I don't know. If you're on there.
Let me look real quick. I can look.
Yeah, I'll do it, Dave.
Yeah.
I think
4 o'clock.
Yeah, Avi's there for 4.
Okay. Talk to you at 4, Avi.
Hey, Lee,
Available earlier. I'm also available earlier. So feel free to move me up if that helps you.
Oh,
I've got a couple of calls. I've got John Levy and a couple other ones. I can't remember, but if it is, I'd like to do it
Yeah,
earlier.
just
too.
ping me.
I
text
think
me.
we can, Avi, I'll reach out to you.
Okay, great.
We can